Hey, if you know me, you may know where this is going, and if not, it may piss you off. I will undoubtedly piss off a few people because today I'm going to talk about those products, those acoustic products that go around the microphone or encapsulate it in some way with the promise of studio quality vocals in an untreated space. Um, Spoiler alert: they don't work at all. And I'm going to explain scientifically why. I'm not going to do a shootout. There are plenty of those on YouTube. You can check them out for yourself. If you look closely, you'll see that any of them that favor positively are flawed in some way. The distance to the microphone changes, the volume changes, something about the test is flawed. And so there's no need for me to do that because I can explain scientifically exactly why these don't work. And that's what I'm going to do. Before we jump into that, though, there are a couple things you need to understand. First of all, you need to have a very basic understanding of how phase works. If a sound wave is out of phase with itself, it cancels out to silence. So, the same frequency going positively and negatively at the same time cancels out to silence. They cancel out. That happens in nature. It happens with electrical signals. That's how it works. The second thing you need to know is how a cardioid capsule works. Now, there are admittedly a few different ways to get cardioid. They all work on a similar principle. They're all dealing with phase. I'm using the most direct method, which would be a cardioid-only microphone. I took one apart today just so I can demonstrate this. You'll see on the front side, I know my lighting's not great, I apologize. On the front side, you have a solid piece of mylar, the diaphragm. It's reflective, you don't see any dots on it. You can probably see my computer screen, probably see the waveform going by if I hold it just right. That's the front of the microphone. On the back side, you've got a second capsule here, or a second piece of mylar, and it's got a bunch of holes in it. Those aren't just dots; they are actual holes, and there is a good reason for them being there. Pay no mind to the wire coming out of the front. That's just the termination of the capsule. Some are center terminated, some are edge terminated. Doesn't matter for the purpose of this. So on the back, we have those dots. The reason for that is that's what gives us our cardioid sound. That's what allows for pickup from mainly the front, some from the sides, and virtually none from the rear. There's a network in there. I don't know what else to call it. It's sometimes called a labyrinth. It slows things down, hitting the back of the capsule. So the holes let some sound in the back, and they slow it down. If the back is solid, we don't have a cardioid mic at all. You might think that would cancel out the sound from coming from the back. It doesn't work that way. You actually create an omnidirectional pattern when you block it out entirely. And that's why most mic capsules begin as omni, and then we make them cardioid with these holes and this network or labyrinth that goes on inside. So it delays that sound by a tiny, tiny amount. What that means is sound that goes in the back. If I'm talking into the back of the microphone, that sound is going to hit directly, and it's also going to bend around this capsule and be picked up from the front side. So really, it's picking up from both sides. Because we have delayed this with the labyrinth, the network, whatever you want to call it, we're slowing that down slightly so that at the same time it enters here, it's going to be the same time it enters the front of the microphone. Okay? So they're going to reach the capsule at the same time. One's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. They are going to cancel out. They are going to freeze that diaphragm. They're going to hit with similar power against that diaphragm and keep it from vibrating. So the stuff coming from the rear is going to be canceled out. Now you may be asking, What happens when you hit it from the front? Well, when you hit it from the front, the same thing is happening. It is curving around. It is going into the back. But by the time it actually reaches the back, because it's now been delayed, it's hitting the front sooner. It's now been delayed. It has lost energy, and it's covered up completely by the sound that you're making with your mouth. So that's how we get cardioid. It's a little bit of an oversimplification. I'm sure you can find some resources to read about it, but that's the long and short of it. Now, the reason those devices don't work is because to get that cancellation in the rear, sound has to enter. It has to go in the back of the microphone. The noise from across the room has to be able to make it to the back of the microphone because it's going to make it to the front of the microphone. It's going to be picked up by the front. So you need that sound also going in the rear to cancel out. So when you encapsulate that with a ball or a cube or whatever, a little tent, whatever it is, you are effectively defeating that mechanism. So instead of having that canceling out mechanism, you've now blocked the back of this, so it can no longer enter the back properly, which means it's going to bend around and come in the front, and you have made yourself a noisier recording than you had before. Now, people say, I've used it, it works. I know it works. It doesn't. Sorry. What you're hearing is because it's typically recessed. Your voice frequencies are starting to be absorbed before they actually make it into the front of the capsule. So you have a deadening effect. Your voice gets muffled, the room gets muffled, everything around you gets muffled. It's like turning down the high end on an EQ. The reflections become a little bit less noticeable when that happens, but your voice sounds like you're talking into a sock. So you get into your program, you dial up the EQ a little bit. Next thing you know, you're back where you started, or you're actually worse because you have blocked the back of the microphone where that stuff has to come in. You have to have those noises coming in the back for them to cancel out what's coming in the front. Does that make sense? So there are other products. There are products that encapsulate the microphone and you. Those do work to some degree. And the reason for that is simply because it's the device, whatever it is surrounding you and the microphone, is deadening everything before it exits. It's deadening all the noise around it, and all the noise in the space should be coming from you. So anything canceling out of the rear should be in the space. It's not coming from the outside of the space. But as long as the front of the microphone is exposed, simply blocking the back of it isn't going to do anything except ruin your recording sound. So I hope I've cleared that up. Go ahead, begin the hate if you're a lover of these products. I know there are a few people that treat it almost like a religion. I don't do religion with microphones. I do science.